This is a dramatized story inspired by real opportunities and real challenges in specialty farming. While the characters are fictional, many of the business situations shown are inspired by how different parts of the garlic industry operate in the real world. Earnings and business outcomes vary depending on location, market conditions, production methods, and management decisions. Every year, thousands of people discover videos claiming garlic is one of the most profitable crops on Earth. Headlines promise impressive returns from a single acre, while success stories spread rapidly across the internet. To someone dreaming of financial freedom, it sounds like the perfect opportunity. But every story has a missing chapter. If garlic really creates so much wealth, why aren't all garlic farmers becoming millionaires? Before we answer that question, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more hidden business stories behind specialty farming. This is the story of Daniel Carter, a first-generation farmer who believed garlic would change his family's future. He thought success depended on growing the best crop. He would soon discover the real business began after harvest. Daniel spent months preparing his land, selecting quality seed garlic, improving the soil, and carefully caring for every plant. Each green shoot represented hope for a better future with his wife, Grace. As harvest approached, the field looked healthy, and Daniel imagined the stories he had watched online were about to become reality. To him, the hardest work was almost finished. But while Daniel focused on growing garlic, other businesses were quietly preparing for what came next. Warehouses scheduled incoming deliveries. Processors planned production. Supermarkets arranged future orders. Daniel believed he was growing a crop. He didn't realize he was supplying an entire industry. Harvest day finally arrived, and the field was filled with excitement. Workers carefully lifted garlic bulbs from the soil, while Daniel proudly admired the results of months of dedication. Then the buyers arrived. Instead of celebrating the harvest, they inspected every bulb. Some were accepted immediately, while others were placed into lower grades because of size, damaged wrappers, or inconsistent appearance. Daniel was shocked. He thought garlic was simply garlic. One experienced buyer smiled and explained, "Customers don't just buy garlic. They buy quality, consistency, and reliability." That sentence stayed with Daniel long after the trucks left his farm. For the first time, he realized harvesting garlic wasn't the end of the business. It was only the beginning. Determined to understand where the real value was created, Daniel decided to follow his own shipment instead of returning home. The garlic didn't go directly to supermarkets. It first arrived at a curing facility where workers carefully controlled temperature and airflow to improve storage life and preserve quality. After curing, every bulb was sorted into different grades. Larger bulbs were destined for premium fresh markets, while smaller or imperfect ones followed different paths. Daniel watched as the same harvest was divided into multiple products serving different customers. Nobody had changed the garlic itself. They had simply prepared it for different markets. Daniel realized the supply chain was creating value long before consumers ever saw the product. Daniel's next stop was a garlic processing company owned by Victor Lang. Conveyor belts carried bulbs through cleaning, peeling, slicing, drying, and packaging lines. Some garlic became ready-to-use products for restaurants. Other batches were prepared for food manufacturers or retail stores. Victor explained that processing wasn't about making garlic more valuable by magic. It was about solving problems for customers. Restaurants wanted convenience. Manufacturers needed consistency. Retailers wanted products that met quality standards. Every service required investment, equipment, trained employees, and strict food safety practices. Daniel finally understood that businesses beyond the farm earned revenue because they added new forms of value to the same harvest. Victor introduced Daniel to Emma Brooks, a produce buyer responsible for supplying supermarket chains. Daniel expected her to choose the cheapest garlic available. Instead, she rejected shipments that failed to meet quality standards. Appearance mattered. Freshness mattered. Packaging mattered. Reliable deliveries mattered. Emma explained that supermarkets weren't buying garlic for one customer. They were serving thousands of families who expected the same quality every time they shopped. One poor shipment could damage customer trust. Daniel realized successful farming wasn't only about producing crops. It was about building a reputation that buyers could depend on season after season. After weeks of visiting farms, warehouses, processors, and buyers, Daniel met Victor one last time. Victor drew the garlic supply chain on a sheet of paper, connecting seed suppliers, growers, storage companies, processors, distributors, retailers, and consumers. Daniel stared at the drawing in silence. He had spent months asking how much money farmers could make. Victor smiled and asked, "What if that's the wrong question?" Daniel looked up. Victor continued, "The better question is this: where is value being created?" That moment changed everything. Every business in the chain accepted different costs, risks, and responsibilities. Each solved problems others couldn't. The garlic industry wasn't built around one winner. It depended on many businesses working together. The following season, Daniel approached farming differently. Instead of chasing bigger harvests, he focused on growing better garlic. He learned more about post-harvest handling, curing, grading, and buyer expectations. He strengthened relationships with dependable customers and looked for ways to reduce waste. Grace noticed the change and asked why he seemed less obsessed with becoming rich. Daniel smiled and replied, "I'm no longer looking for the most profitable crop. I'm learning how to build the best business I can." He finally understood that long-term success wasn't created by dramatic promises. It came from improving one decision after another. Months later, Daniel returned to his field with a completely different perspective. He finally had the answer to the question that started his journey. There wasn't one group that always made the most money. Skilled farmers could build successful operations through quality and efficiency. Storage companies created value by preserving crops until buyers needed them. Processors served restaurants and manufacturers with specialized products. Retailers succeeded by consistently meeting customer expectations. Every part of the supply chain had opportunities to thrive, but none were guaranteed. Success depended less on where someone stood in the chain and more on how effectively they solved problems and served customers. The internet often asks, which crop makes the most money? But the real question is, where can I create the most value? As another harvest season arrived, Daniel watched workers load fresh garlic onto waiting trucks. The field looked much the same as it had the year before, yet Daniel felt completely different. He no longer measured success only by the number of bulbs he harvested. He measured it by what he had learned, the relationships he had built, and the business he was slowly creating. Grace smiled and asked if he was disappointed that he hadn't become an overnight millionaire. Daniel laughed softly. "No," he replied. "I became something better. I became someone who understands the business." Every garlic bulb begins its journey in a field, but its story doesn't end there. It passes through warehouses, processing facilities, transportation networks, supermarkets, restaurants, and finally into homes around the world. Each step creates new value, new challenges, and new opportunities. The people who build lasting businesses aren't usually the ones chasing the loudest headlines. They're the ones who understand how an entire industry works and continue learning long after everyone else believes they've learned enough. So, who really gets rich in the garlic business? The answer isn't a single farmer, processor, or retailer. The greatest opportunities often belong to those who understand the entire supply chain, identify where they can add meaningful value, and build sustainable businesses around solving real problems. If this story changed the way you think about garlic, tell us in the comments which part of the garlic business surprised you the most. And subscribe for the next chapter in our specialty farming documentary series, where we'll uncover another hidden industry and follow the money behind the harvest.